If you want to learn how to wheel throw pottery, the first challenge, of course, is to have access to a wheel. If you look at the normal pottery stores, those wheels can run up to a couple of $1,000s, which is a lot of money. If you have that kind of money, I recommend buying one of the branded wheels like Brent or Shimpo. They're very good and they're probably going to last forever for you. But it is a lot of money. Maybe you can borrow a wheel, maybe you can get access to a workshop where there is wheels that you can try out. But if you want your own, there are alternatives. There are much cheaper wheels on the market. Actually, you can get an electric wheel for less than 10% of the big branded names. But the question is, are they any good? Can they be used at all? Or is it just a toy? In this video, I'm going to take a closer look at one of the newer, cheaper Chinese wheels and see how well it turns out. Earlier this year, the Chinese company Vevor sent me a wheel and asked me to review it. I said, well, sure, I would like to do that, but I won't promise I say anything good about it. It is a much cheaper wheel. The wheel I was trying out at that time was a rather small one. It only had a 25 centimeter, 11 inch, I think it is, wheel head. So this is the size of it. And of course, this limits me somehow in doing the bigger things that I like to do. But it's still okay. You know, most pots don't have a button that is wider than this. So I thought, look, let's give it a try. And I have a video about that. But Vevor also makes some bigger wheels. And they make the ones in the usual full size that you get in professional wheels. And this is 35 inch. So you can see the difference. It's quite a lot. So this is 35 centimeter, 14 inch. And that's the size I usually like to use. So Vevor was kind enough to send me a new one. And this is the big version, the 35 centimeter wheelhead wheel. And it also has a stronger engine. And in the brochure or in the documentation, they recommend that you can do up to 8 kilo of clay on this one. And that's quite a lot. I do sometimes 10, 15, even 20 kilo. I'm not sure if this wheel can handle it, but for most people, 8 kilo is a lot. And if you're just starting out, it's more than enough. So let's go and open the box and see what's inside. This is the box with the new wheel, the 35 centimeter Vevor wheel. And I think the boxing looks really nice. It's very solid and there's no outer mark, so hopefully it's intact on the inside. And that is, of course, very important. When you order a wheel online, you want to have it delivered in one piece and not broken. And I think this looks like it's a very solid packaging. That's a good first step. So let's open the box and see what's inside. So let's see. Okay, it looks pretty well protected. There's some foam around the wheel head, which is nice. And just gonna throw that away. And now let's try and see if we can remove it. It's surprisingly light, but that's okay. Let's just put it out here. So this is the basic wheel. It looks like it's very low. You can, I think, extend the feet, but the first one I got was also very low, and I had to put it on a box to get it up in a height that is useful for me. So maybe we have to do the same thing. Let's see what else is in the box. Besides the splash pan and the power cable, there's also a bunch of accessories in this one. There's a whole package of pottery tools. These are very basic tools, but I guess if you're just starting out, this is nice. And there's an apron, I think. Looks very thin. I'm not sure how good that is, but I already have good clothing for my wheel throwing, so that doesn't matter so much. And I think these are some pottery tools. Let's open it up and see. So let's see what's inside this. It's like sort of like a plastic material, and yeah, well, I think it could work. It's okay. I mean, it will probably protect your clothes, but I don't like this kind, but that's just my personal taste. It's included. It's not like a high quality apron, but it should work. And then you have all these tools. There's a sponge, a metal rib, a potter's needle, which is nice, and some, just a few tools here. It's a good, little package to start out with. You can buy a bunch of this for almost nothing. So if you need more of this, go to any pottery store and they have tons of these tools for very little. There's also this box, so let's see what's inside this. I always have to use that much tape. And these are a set of trimming tools. They're actually pretty decent. It was the same one that came with the small one that I got. And to my surprise, they're actually pretty decent. Of course, they're not the super high quality that you can get handmade tools. But then again, even one piece of these handmade tools that you can get cost more than this entire wheel and all the accessories. So I think this is a good start if you're just starting out. Now, let's go and take a closer look at the wheel. One of the first things that you may notice is that this wheel doesn't come with pins. So the bats that I'm usually using with pinholes, I have these pins that I push it over. I like to work that way. Of course, you can work directly on the wheel head. You don't need bats. You don't need to have pins. Some people also just add some clay and they glue the bat to it, or they put some other material here. There are different ways. You can also get bat systems that connects over the edge, and all that can work. I just like pins. But it's not a big problem because you can make your own bat pins and your own holes. I'll show you how to do that. So there is a foot pedal that is hardwired into the wheel, so you can't unplug that. And it's the same one as the other one. It's in plastic. The good thing about plastic is, of course, it doesn't corrode. The bad thing is that it doesn't seem to be very precise, but it was okay. But maybe this one is different. It looks the same, but we can try it out. And then, of course, you have the splash pan in two pieces, which is very similar to Shimpo and some of the other big brands. They probably copied that. It's a very good basic design. It makes it easy to remove them and clean them. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to mount them, so let's see. That was actually easy enough. Just need to use a little bit of force. And now we have a full size. One thing I do notice is that the splash pan is a little bit high, so you would have to go down here to work with your clay. But when I use my bat, let me just take the bat, here it is, that's gonna raise it just a little bit. So I think that's actually gonna be better for me. The power cable connects easily to the side here. And there seems to be some sort of a, I don't know, fuse or something here, looks like it. But this is one part of the construction that I don't like too much, because water is going to splash out here. And it may run down here. And as you know, water and electricity is not so good. So I will probably put some piece of metal or something over here to kind of protect it. On the Shimpo wheel and other wheels that I work with, it already is protected, moved in a little bit or something. This is not too good. I think they should have extended that part a little bit over here. That would make it feel a little more safe. And then you have funny thing here because you have power and you have what I suggest, think is the starting of the wheel and ending of the wheel. And then of course the speed with the pedal. So let's first try and extend the feet. Let's see. Yeah, here's the engine and the feet. And it comes with this little tool to unlock the feet here. The good thing is you only have to do this once. It's not something that you go around and change all the time. Let me see. Unscrew this. So this is the total length of the feet. That is not so much. I will put it to the maximum height and screw these back in. Always a little bit tricky, but it's always tricky with metal screws because they have to go in so precisely. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that can be a little bit tricky, but again, it's only something that you have to do once. You're not gonna change the height of the feet daily or maybe even ever. So I'm gonna tie this one as much as you can. So it actually feels pretty good. But as you see, this is still not a very tall leg. So I probably still need to raise this a little bit. So now we got the feet raised to the maximum height. But as you see, I literally have to sit on the floor to use this wheel. And I'm not going to do that. I have a chair and it's a little bit higher than this. And so I will have to raise it. It's not a big problem. I would have liked the legs to be longer, but I mean, it's something that you can solve. So now we will make back pins. And for that, we will need the pins. And this is these little screws. I'm not actually sure what they're called in English, but you can get them in most hardware stores. It's got like I don't know what it is, 0.5 centimeter raised up here. And then you're going to need this, and you're going to need a screw on the bottom. And basically you make a hole. This is 10 millimeter, and you make a hole, put it in, put this on the back, and you screw it on. And then that is going to connect over the pinhole like this. And it has to be smaller than the thickness of your bat, so it doesn't stick up, but enough to hold it in place. I found these in my local hardware store, very cheap, few cents for this. Of course, these pins have to be placed on the wheel head very, very precisely. There's a standard for the size between these, and I can't remember exactly what it is, 20 something centimeter, but you don't need to know that. If you have one of the standardized bats, you can use that as a template for drilling the holes. Let me show you that. Now I have my tools ready and the bat that I'm going to use as a template, and I'm ready to drill holes for my bat pins. The first thing we need to do is center the bat. And you've got to make sure that the holes are in the right place. Underneath the wheel head, there's some vertical things, metal things to strengthen the wheel head. It's difficult to see because they're underneath here. And you don't want to drill right into that, of course. And they are like with this distance, so they're here, one, and here. It's easy to feel. And of course you want the hole to be in between that. So here, oh, here it actually collapses. So here it goes free. So that's the first thing you want to make sure. Otherwise, it just won't work. So this is the right rotation, at least. And then I'll just turn it around very slowly. I did it too fast. Turn it around slowly to see that it's centered. And yeah, it seems to be okay. If it's not completely centered, it won't matter. It's just annoying that it's gonna flap around, but it won't make any difference in terms of wheel throwing. But this is exactly the size of the wheel head. So if I make it even all the way around, it should be fine. And just to make sure, it needs to be rotated a little bit. There. And now we need to mark up the holes. And I'm just going to use this marker. And I'm going to mark up the whole center of it, because then I can easily pinpoint the very center of that. So here we go, that one and the other one, and we should be ready to remove the bat. Before I drill it, I will mark it up with this thing. Again, I'm not sure what it's called in English, but this is to make it easier for me to align the drill bit so it doesn't move around. And this has to be very, very precise. That looks good. And that looks good too. Even though the wheel head is made of aluminum, I'm going to use these steel drill bits because they're so strong and they just go smoothly through them like butter. I'm going to start out with a very small drill bit. This is just about 1 millimeter, because that's easy to get through without it disturbing it or getting out of center. And then you have a guide for the larger one that fits my screws. So let's start with this one. And to make sure that I'm not drilling into my wheel, I'm just going to put this piece of wood underneath. I don't think it's going to be a problem because this drill bit is very short, but the bigger one is going to be longer. So here we have the guide, and so here we go. That looks good. And the other side. And you want to get rid of all these metal scraps in the end. Maybe you want to vacuum. And now we will go to the bigger size, the size of my screws. And they are 10 millimeters. So just to make sure that they are the right size, just gonna check it by hand, and this looks good. So so now we have the guide of the small hole. See, it was good that I had the wood. There we go. We're just gonna take all the scraps away. And I'm just gonna vacuum this. Now we're ready to mount the pins. And there are 3 elements to that. The screw, and this, and this. So I'm gonna put this in. Looks good. And before I mount it, screw it on, I just want to check if I made it precisely enough. Yeah, it fits perfectly. Then we're going to put this one on and then tighten it with the screw. And that can be a little bit tricky because you need to get your hands in there, but it usually works out okay. And this way you can also remove them if you, for whatever reason, want to throw without bats. I always throw with bats, so for me, I'm just going to leave them. So, they're tightened, and now I have bat pins on my wheel. So you see that literally only took a couple of minutes. It's really fast. So now comes the exciting part. Let's move into my workshop and start throwing some things on it. So now I'm ready to throw my first pot on this new wheel, new to me at least. And here is the first problem, because I use these buckets, one for scraps and one for water, but this wheel don't have enough surface here for them to fit. I mean, they can almost fit, but I'm afraid it's gonna fall off. So I'm gonna keep my water on my other wheel. And let's hope that works out. I would have liked the surface to be a little bit bigger. So in case I'm going to use this ongoing, I'll probably make some sort of a table around it or something to have a little bit of space. I also like to have some space for my tools, and there's really no space for that. So it's very compressed. I'm going to start out with a lump of clay of about 3 kilo, I think. And maybe that's a little more than most beginners would start out with. But I want to try and test this wheel. So I'm going to try and make it as tall and wide as possible, a bowl of some kind, and see how that goes. The first thing that I notice, maybe you do too, is that this is actually a lot more quiet than the smaller wheel that I also have from Vevor. There's no clicking sounds, and I mean, it's not as quiet as a Shimpo Whisper, which is known for its very quietness, but it's actually okay. I mean, I could live with this. Also, the pedal seems to be working a little better. It's still difficult to get very slow speeds, but that's a general issue with electric wheels. There are some electric wheels where you can set the max speed. That's very useful if you're doing big things. But on my Shimpo wheel, it's also sort of an issue. So I can live with that. So let's try this out. And of course, slamming it reveals another issue with a wheel like this. It is not as solid as the Shimpo, so maybe you need to be a little bit more careful. And again, now that I have the water over here, unless I want water all over my studio, I need to be a little more careful. Oh, it's definitely struggling a little more. I didn't attach my clay with it up. So I'll try and see if I can get it into position. If you're having problems with your bat sticking to the wheel head, one trick is that you can put some sort of material you can use. You can buy special bat mates to put, or you can buy what I usually use, the things that you use to clean windows in the car. You can buy that very cheap in car shops and add it here. It's definitely struggling, even with just 3 kilo or whatever it is, but it's not giving up, so it's working. The splash pan is definitely a bit high. I would have liked it to be a little bit lower, but I mean, it's okay. And maybe also I need something more stable to put it on because it's tipping over a little bit. But I think we're getting there and it's working okay. I just need to finish the centering. You can see my bat is wobbling a little bit. That is maybe because I didn't place the holes 100% precise, but it's just the outside of the bat. I mean, the bat itself doesn't move around, so it still works okay. So now it's time to open it. I mean, it's going okay. It's definitely not the workhorse that I have with my Shimpo, but and I do think I need a more stable setup for this. It's tipping around a little bit. It's probably because I placed it on this piece of foam or flamingo, I think it's called. I want to trim a foot on this one, but let me just check the thickness of the button anyway. Yeah, it's a little bit too much right now, so I will thin that out. Gonna call it in because now I'm gonna pull it up, and I don't like my walls to be too wide when I do that. It's easy to widen your walls. It's difficult to narrow them in. So always start out with something more of a sort of a pyramid shape, and then I'll widen it later. Press the walls. And then I press it in the bottom to get as much of that clay out as possible and move it up. I think because the stability of the wheel is not so good with the setup I have now, it's sort of influencing how much the bowl is wobbling. Usually I don't have this problem, and it's probably that. It's not going to be a huge problem for this one, but I still like it to be as even as possible. Other than that, it seems to be working okay. I'm not running into the same issues as I did with the small one, where it's sort of dragging and having a problem actually turning around. At least this one seems to be working better in that sense. But it is, as you can see, a little bit wobbly at the top. It could be me, my lack of skills or focus, being focused too much on you guys and the video. Or it could be this, that the wheel tend to jump around a little bit. So it could be a combination of things. And take some of the slip away. So it doesn't weaken the pot too much. See, now I need some place to put this. I really need that. So that's definitely a thing with this one. I'm just trying to compress the rim a little bit to help even out the wobbling. It's getting better now. So now it's time to do a bit more of the shaping. I want it to be a little bit wider at the bottom and also at the top. I deliberately chose this sort of shape because it is challenging in terms of the stability of the wheel. If it's not completely stable, making these wider forms is difficult. So I deliberately chose that one. It is difficult to get a stable, very slow speed. But as I said, it's a general problem, I think, with most electric kilns. And I think the control, the foot pedal here is just not as precise as I would like it to be. But I mean, you get used to it. But see, oh, it's okay. So maybe I should just leave my foot. Let me just see. Oh, it was just... It's difficult if I leave my foot, it sort of jumps out of gear, and that's not so good. So I think I need to keep my foot on it. Is it also a little difficult when you start it out? When you hit the pedal, it's very easy that it goes too fast, and for a big ball like this, it's damaging. I'm just trying to get the inside shape perfected the way that I like it. You can trim the inside if you want. I often do that with bowls. With open shapes like this, it's not so difficult. Of course, with a vase, it's almost impossible. But with open shapes like this, you can trim the inside. Some potters will tell you never to trim the inside of a pot, but don't believe them. It is possible. Now we're getting to the point where it's almost flipping. So need to be very careful now and not take out too much more. Ideally, I would dry it a little bit before I do anything else. But all in all, I think this actually was a very good first test on my wheel. I did make a couple of mistakes in throwing this. I laid it out a little bit too much, too fast, but I think I can save it and it will turn out a decent bowl. Now I'll just let it dry out a little bit, and then I can adjust the hangover and the trimming of it later. So, what is my conclusion on this? Well, again, I must say that I'm surprised. It's actually a wheel that works. I should have done this better, but that's my fault. It was easily able to handle the 3 kilo, and I think 5 kilo, 6 kilo, maybe even a bit more would also be possible on this wheel. So I'm looking forward to do a few more pots and see how it goes. So if you are looking for a pottery wheel and you don't have the money to buy a Shimpo or a Brent, one of the other big brands, I definitely suggest that you look into these kind of wheels. I've only been testing these Vevor wheels, and I think it's decent. I mean, it's 10% of the price of my Shimpo. And I even have gotten a special discount code. They were kind enough to give me that as part of the review process. So if you look at the link down here, there's a link to the different shops, the US and the European and so on, and discount code, and that will give you 5% extra discount. I will be getting a very small commission if you buy through those links, just so you know, for clarity. But I'm primarily doing this, as I said in the beginning, because I want to test this wheel, and I'm not lying about it. I'm telling you good and bad, and all in all, I think it's a decent wheel. So if you enjoyed this, please subscribe and come back next week. I hope to have a new video ready for you.